JFK Terminal 8. I'm your host, Amy Benson with Unibuy Rodamco Westfield. So, in partnership with the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and American Airlines, JFK T8 Innovation Partners is giving small, local, women and minority owned businesses and entrepreneurs the opportunity to test their retail concepts in the airport marketplace as part of the $125 million commercial program underway in Terminal 8 at John F. Kennedy International Airport. These opportunities are specifically reserved for founders or businesses that originate from Southeast Queens, Greater Queens, the New York City metro area, or the New York regional area. We are excited to have you with us today and of your interest in this opportunity to join URW's local small business retail accelerator. Next slide. So why are we here? Well, today's session will give you a project update on the T8 commercial program redevelopment and the dynamic transformation that is underway with the shopping and dining experience. You will learn more about URW's local small business retail accelerator opportunities and the sales opportunity through retail kiosks. You will also learn how to apply for the opportunity, and we will end the session with best practices and resources that can support your success. Next slide. So, a few housekeeping points as we start today's program. This session is being recorded and will be posted on our website for replay, along with the presentation. We will open the floor to questions later in the program. So if you have a question at any time during the presentation, add a question in the Q&A tab in the engagement panel on the right. Mobile users can access Q&A using the Q&A button below the live stream video feed. We will answer submitted questions at the end of the program. Also, by registering for today's event, you are now on URW's diverse supplier list and will receive project updates. Next slide. So let's meet our speakers today. As mentioned before, my name is Amy Benson, and I'm the VP of Marketing for URW. I also have the honor to serve as executive sponsor of URW's Advanced Network, which is focused on growing small, local, minority, and women-owned diverse business opportunities across our entire portfolio. You'll also hear, and please welcome, Ashley Harry, Director of Leasing with URW. Ashley is responsible for leasing the new T8 and brings great expertise on the terminal, small business opportunities, and partnerships with the community. Finally, please welcome Obi Chiappa, Project Director with RFW Consultants. Obi is a resource supporting the local community and how to get involved and participate in T8 business opportunities. Next slide. So to take us through the new Terminal 8 commercial program, I'd like to introduce Ashley Harry, Director of Leasing with URW, who will showcase the program vision and key small business opportunities. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you everybody for joining us in one of many sessions and series that we've had over the last 12 to 18 months as we kind of kicked off the concession refresh of JFK Terminal 8. And so if you've joined us before, you've likely seen this slide, this photo, these facts, but just from a high level, really what's happening is, if you want to call phase 2, reimagining JFK Terminal 8. So American Airlines did their first phase. You can see here in the first bullet, which was really focused on the passenger experience from an airline perspective, new baggage belts, new gate areas, etc. So URW airports will lean in with our tenants to kind of transform the environment and really bring in that New York City sense of place into T8. Next slide. One thing that is very important is the passenger, the customer profile or demographic that we focus on. And so each terminal is very different. And for anybody interested in kind of exploring, airport opportunities, this is one of the things you really need to understand very deeply to just kind of make sure that your offer, whatever that may be, aligns with your potential customers. So very high level macro profile. You can see some of the demographics of the people who are using this building. So almost 50-50 split men and women. It's, average age is on the younger side of things we've seen. JFK T8 historically has been one of the higher household income terminals, which just basically means the passengers have a very high spending power. In the middle here, we kind of focus on, purchasing behavior and amount of time that people spend in the terminal, which is also known as dwell time, if you've heard that term. 193 minutes is quite a long time, right? So how can we inspire and encourage people to explore concepts, to visit with your concept, to turn over sales at those concepts? Spend per employment is something we in the industry use to kind of define each person that walks through the door on average, how much are they spending? On the right-hand side, the domestic and international split is very important. They're different customers. They need different things. Their flight times are different. What they can get on their flights are different. So that is something we always take into account very heavily. And then just knowing what airlines are in your airport or in your terminal is very important. So JFK T8 has 11 airlines that are currently serving Terminal 8. That is predominantly led by American Airlines, British Airways, and then you have about 9 other international carriers as well. Next slide. So as Amy mentioned, we are going to take you through the local small business Sorry, having a technical difficulty, I think. So, we're going to take you through the opportunities, right? And I think the easiest way to do this is to understand, am I a good fit for this opportunity, or maybe I'm not quite sure? So, we're hoping by the end of this presentation, you have a better kind of clarification and understanding around that. So, what we are looking for are local, small, diverse businesses to join us. Anybody can apply. We encourage anybody to apply. Opportunities will be prioritized for the New York area. You can see the kind of list here. What we are talking about today is for turnkey. What we call them turnkey means you just kind of come, set up your products, and open for business. Right? There's no build out or investment from that perspective. So there's 4 100 square feet retail kiosks. We use these across our URW center side program, and they're very successful. It's a great size entry level to kind of get in, test the waters. It's very manageable by one person. It doesn't take a ton of product to kind of fill shelf space, et cetera, et cetera. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. What can I sell? So here, these are for retail focused products, right? And so we do have a list here. We'll go through that in a little bit more detail in a few other slides. This whole presentation will be available for you to read after the fact. So please don't feel like you need to write down a ton of things. Just kind of sit here, listen, absorb, and ask some questions at the end. So the one thing I do want to mention is what these retail opportunities is not for, or are any type of perishable food and beverage item that requires refrigeration, pretty much. So let's kind of get into the detail. Go ahead, next slide. Okay, so when we're talking about operating at an airport, right, it's very different from street side. If you've joined us before, you've heard me really lean into this because it is incredibly important to understand what you're getting into. There's different hours of operation that are required by the airport authority or airline. A little bit different than on the street where you make your own hours. That's not the way it necessarily works in the airport environment. Everybody's there to serve the passenger, right? And so, thus, we are open before and after the first and last flight. Badging and security is an additional layer. So, your employees do need to be able to pass a background screening test. They will be traveling through security every day. What does parking and access look like? There's some nuances around that are important to understand. Cost of labor is higher than what you typically see on the street environment. I think minimum wage by the Port Authority requirement, I think, is about $27 an hour, if I am not mistaken. Pricing is very specific in the airport environment. They allow you to set your pricing to be whatever your street pricing is plus 10%. That is the max, and you will be required to prove that throughout a kind of paperwork process that's called the street pricing policy that our operations team supports you on. Merchandise delivery and storage. These kiosks are self-contained, meaning, every kind of from a storage perspective, there is storage built into these units for you to use, but you will still need to understand how logistically do I get my product to the airport? Do I get it to my kiosk? And those are the types of details that once we were to enter into an agreement or start a negotiation on a space, we would kind of get you up to speed on all the details. Not to worry at this point. Next slide. So we have some minimum qualifications for the kiosks, right? We're not looking to try a new product for the first time that's never been done, right? We need to see that you've been in operation a minimum of 3 years. This product must be sold online, in stores, or have some type of physical presence, but less than 3 stores. We are really focused on small business, right, and helping you accelerate. I would say accelerate that in the airport environment. Um, you cannot participate if you've already participated in the accelerator program, which is not a now problem, but will be a future problem once we've had a few businesses kind of come through the program. Must be an LLC, S Corp, B Corp, C Corp, all of this. I won't go through the whole list, but all of it's available on the application. You can read through it a little bit more closely, which we also will take a look at a little bit later. Next slide. All right, so here is a photo, a rendering of the beautiful kiosks. They are meant to complement the terminal environment of the future. Terminal 8 will be very different than what you see today, which is a wonderful thing. There is specific space for signage. There will be product shelving opportunities. These are modular, right? So once somebody is selected for the kiosk, we will I will then in turn them over to our design team who will help said business or entrepreneur set up their kiosk, position themselves for the best kind of sales productivity, share best practice, et cetera, et cetera. So in addition to just kind of being able to come into the environment and make sales, you will also learn a lot about how to position yourself and your product in the best light, which I think is incredibly important for anybody who owns or operates a small business. So on the right-hand side, there's a couple bullets here, program highlights, kiosk overview, and then things the tenant is expected to provide. So we've already gone through kind of the program highlights. One or two things I will touch on is that these are strategically placed in Terminal 8 to be in a very visible, very high traffic area. They're positioned close to essentials locations in the middle on the way, right? These are not things that we're putting in the back corner of the concourse and hoping people find you. These are very much front and center to help any small business that comes in succeed. We do offer shorter term leases that, are not typical in the airport environment, but will help kind of a small business just getting their footing, understand if it's the right fit for them to begin with. The right size spaces, which I mentioned about the 100 square feet, those are meant to kind of support limited product availability. And so you're not having to fill a huge 500 square foot store with product. This is much easier to manage and chew in the early stages. We are anticipating these to open Q3, Q4 of this year. So later this summer, more likely into the beginning of fall, is when these will be opening. So not too far away. Um, we've talked through most of the kiosk overview items, turnkey, 100 square feet, one badged employee, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, holidays and weekends also count in this capacity. We've talked about no water, sinks, refrigeration, right? But I think it's important to reiterate because we've seen a lot of food and beverage applications come through, and I just want to clarify that this particular opportunity is for retail or service focused individuals. Um, so just take a look at kind of a couple items the tenant will provide, signage, visual merchandising plan. Those are things that we'll work through with you, but you will be expected to complete and send to us. Next slide. Okay, so fundamentals of this short-term, temporary lease agreement. So it'll be anywhere up to 1 year. We will include a 1 year option to renew. if a certain set of performance KPIs are met. And KPI means key performance indicator. That is something that will be case by case, depending on what your product is, what you're selling, at what price point. That will be case by case, and we will agree to that with the business or tenant, we call them, prior to executing the lease, so that you are aware if I do X throughout the term of my lease, then I could take my 1 year extension option. If I don't do X, then I will not be offered a 1 year extension, right? For example. So again, those are case by case. Those are things we'll talk through once you're selected. So rent, this is very important, right? This is the first time we're sharing this information publicly. We have two things in the airport. One is called a minimum annual guarantee. That is the basement or the lowest amount that you will pay, which for these kiosks will be 2,000 a month, which is incredibly cheap in airport standards, right? I know it's a little bit pricey for those who are not used to it or for the street side locations. So $2,000 a month is your minimum. It's the greater of 2,000 a month or 12% of your overall sales, whichever is greater. You are not paying both. Security deposit is 1 month. Common area maintenance is something we charge all of our tenants. That covers things like cleaning, loading dock, trash removal, etc. You're billed at a rate per square foot. So as you can imagine, kiosks will be very, very low rate. However, will be expected to pay your share for your footprint in the terminal. Insurance requirements are pretty hefty. This is a requirement by the Port Authority. $2 million is the policy, and there's really no way of getting around that. So I did want to make sure people have very transparent visibility into that. The one good thing about the accelerators, and as you heard, Amy is the VP of marketing, but we will not be charging the accelerators our typical 0.5% marketing fee and digital fee. So typically tenants come in, they pay a very small percentage of their sales that go towards terminal marketing initiatives, really to drive foot traffic into your location. But we will skip that step for the sake of this local small business accelerator. Next slide. So look, if you haven't seen our website, I would definitely encourage you to check it out. It's the new jfkt8.com. Under the opportunities tab, you will find a direct link to the application, or you can scan this QR code in front of you. That will take you right there, or you can email info.t8@rfwconsultants.com. All of those entry points will get you into the application. If you have questions, the info T8 is the best route to take. Very important to see that the deadline to apply is May 31st at 5 p.m. So just a few weeks away. So if this is something you're considering, please send in your application as soon as you can. Next slide. All right. Speaking of the application. So you will see this is all done online. The intent is to make this streamlined and as seamless and as efficient as possible. What will happen after you apply is we will have our RFW team who you meet a little bit later. They will pre-qualify you based on a couple pre-qualifiers that I mentioned in the earlier slide, making sure you are who you say you are, your business is where you say it is, you've been in business a certain amount of years, etc. But the applications will go over the basics, right? Who you are, what your company is, what you offer. Next slide. And I guess I'm getting a little ahead of myself, right? Because here we jump into the concept. What is the brand? Why airports, right? Why do you think it's a good fit for airports? What is your target demographic typically? Next slide. Another important thing that we have in the airport environment, which is sometimes different than on the street, is different types of business certifications, which Quentin and Obi, who will be on a little bit later, can answer questions around. You'll see the list of certifications on the top right here, but it's really ACDBE, which stands for Airport Concession Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, MBE, WBE, MWBE. There's a couple certifications through the state and through the Port Authority that we'd like to know about if you do qualify. Why are they beneficial? How are they beneficial is all kind of spelled out. The Port Authority at JFK also runs an Institute of Concessions, right? So have you participated in that? Are you planning to? Those are things we would like to know. Next slide. And this is where we kind of want to understand more about why you think this is a very good, unique opportunity for you, right? Why do you fit into JFK Terminal 8? What are you looking to gain from participating? Just kind of explaining to us what your pitch is and why you think it's the right fit for T8 and the customers in T8 that we serve. Next slide. All right, let's jump into the resources, and I think I'm going to hand it back to Amy.
Thank you, Ashley, for that detailed presentation. It's certainly an excellent opportunity for a local small business to test their product in an airport environment and to learn about operating in an airport. So I'd now like to introduce Obi Chiapa, Project Director with RFW Consultants, and our partner providing key education, capacity building, and certification expertise to the local community. Obi, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Amy, and good afternoon, everyone. I am so excited about this opportunity, and I hope you all are too. And we keep enforcing, or we keep our team, our Focus Consultants. Our major role is to make sure that as many businesses, as many local MWBE firms have an opportunity to participate at the airport. And we do everything that we can to make sure that businesses have the resources, they have the information, they have the guidance, whatever it is that is needed. Myself and my team are dedicated to you to make sure that you have what you need to, at least, even if you're not in the airport, which is the main goal, leave much better than you were when you came in. So that's stated specifically for this program, and just for any other inquiries you have about Terminal 8, our office has office hours. So if you have any questions, I know that Ashley had provided a lot of information. So if you have any questions whatsoever, if you want to have any one-on-one sessions, we have office hours, which are virtually on Tuesdays from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. or in person, which are on Thursdays from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. by appointment only at the JFK Redevelopment Center, which is located at 144-33 Jamaica Avenue. If you have any other questions at any time, feel free to reach out to us at infot8@rfocusconsultants.com, and we'll be able to do whatever it is that we can to make sure that you have the guidance that you need. Example, if any of the affirmation times do not work for you, then we can work with your schedule. The team is pretty nimble to make sure that there's someone who can meet with you either virtually or in person to answer any questions that you have. We also wanted to use this opportunity to highlight that we will actually be available at the JFK Redevelopment Information and Opportunities Expo that's coming up a week from today at the Roy Wilkins Community Center. And the team is going to be available there from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So if you have any questions about any part of the process, whether you want to, have your concept assessed, or if you want to get guidance on that application for the certifications that were mentioned earlier, whatever it is, we are here to help you and guide you on that. Next slide, please. Awesome. So just to summarize, I wanted to really bring to everyone's attention that there's been a major push to make sure that there's as much local participation at the airport as much as possible. And this is from every layer, whether it's with the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, with the elected officials who were constantly working with the terminal developers to make sure that the opportunity is available. And even with like Westfield, the terminal developer, and American Airlines to make sure these opportunities are available. However, all of these efforts will be in vain if you don't apply. So with that, I urge you, and I can't urge you enough, to please apply today. You can apply by scanning the QR code that's on your screen, or you can send us an email, as we mentioned, at the info@rfwilkinsconsultants.com, and we'll be able to guide you through the process and send you a direct link to the application. With that, I believe that brings us to an end of our presentation. So back to you, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you, Obi, and thank you, Ashley, for sharing your knowledge with our audience today. I really encourage everyone who is new and interested in doing business at JFK T8 to reach out to info@rfwconsultants.com, as they really are a great resource offering advice and support. So we are now going to open the floor to questions for our panelists. I'm going to invite all of our panelists back to the stage for the Q&A. And I'd also like to introduce Quentin Bailey with RFW Associates, who is another great resource. So we have received a few questions from the audience. As a reminder, if you do have a question, please use the question function to submit your question and we will answer them now. So we're going to start with our first question, which is going to be for Ashley. So Ashley, if I apply and I am accepted in this program, does it limit my opportunities at JFK T1 or other terminals?
Good question. Thank you, Amy. Look, I think each terminal is very specific. The projects are very specific. What you do at one terminal will not impact your opportunities at another terminal. You heard Obi mention that the more the merrier when it comes to local opportunities and participation. So I certainly wouldn't hold yourselves back from applying for T8 if you feel like it's the right fit by fear of not being able to participate in the future. That is not our intent in any capacity.
Great. Thank you, Ashley. I have a follow-up to that question for you. Is this only for retail or is there an opportunity for food and beverage?
So this particular opportunity we're talking about today is only for retail. There are very specific Port Authority, Department of Health requirements around food and beverage, how it's handled, what environment it can be in. And so these kiosks would not qualify for any type of food and beverage aside from non-perishable items. So if your products are shelf stable, that is a really good option. The kiosks are a really good option for you to consider. But unfortunately, today's opportunities are just for retail.
Thanks, Ashley. Quentin, we have a question for you. Can you talk a little bit about what makes this program special?
Well, I think what makes a program special, obviously, anytime to work closely with the folks that are experienced with putting together, creating these programs at the airport. One of the things, and in the terminals themselves, one of the things that I like about Ashley's presentation is that she's always willing to share information that we've never heard before. And that's because we're talking to the folks that are actively working in the terminals with our concessionaire resources to help not the community, the public at large, but then the community as well, to understand the opportunities and how they come, how they fit into the overall commercial program at T8.
Great, thanks, Quentin. One follow-up question for you. Is ACDBE required for this program?
Well, there are goals that are associated with our concessions program overall. So anytime that any of these opportunities are presented, we're always looking to engage, of course, always looking to engage with those local ACDBEs that are already certified and a part of the list of the public directory of certified firms for the Port Authority. So those are certainly those ACDBE certified firms are prioritized.
Thanks,
I can add to that a little bit, Amy.
Sure.
I think somebody who's interested in participating in T8 is blowing up Quentin's phone. So
yes.
We definitely want you to take that as soon as we're done. So look, as Quentin mentioned, certifications in this environment are always helpful. They are not a requirement in this particular case. But you know, if you have the certifications, that shows us you've kind of already taken initiative, which is something we've been really pushing over the last 12 months. But if you're not certified, that is something this program will help you do throughout the course of your term, is to get certified with Quentin and Obi and their team as well.
Absolutely.
Yes. The RFW consultants are just great in terms of helping you navigate what can sometimes be a very complex, certification process. So, Ashley, we're getting a lot of questions that are operational based. So, I'm going to group a few of
Side
these
door.
together for you. So our first question that's operations is, are you able to have more than one badged employee? 12 hours a day, 7 days a week will require breaks and days off.
Yeah, so let me just clarify that for everybody, Amy, is when I say one employee, I mean one employee on shift in the terminal at all times at a minimum, right? So you can have 5 employees for your kiosk if you want on a rotating schedule, but there has to always be somebody there present with the kiosks 12 hours a day.
Thanks, Ashley.
Mhm.
Another operational question for around employees. So, do employees reporting for work go through TSA, or do they have their own screened entry?
So this is different at every terminal. And currently in TA, the majority of the employees, unless you're an airline ramp worker or such, do go through the security screening checkpoint. They are able to use a special employee lane in the TSA, I'm sorry, the pre-check area. So it does expedite. I also go through security every time I go to the airport. So it's really, an additional 5 minutes, the way that American Airlines has it structured today, but it is something to be aware of.
Another operational question. This comes down to tasting. So that we have someone on the line who sells honey, and many of their customers enjoy a taste before purchasing. So, is that allowed? Confirming that means a chocolate candy shop would meet these requirements.
So, my gut reaction is that yes, we would allow that. I will defer to our technical operational specialist to qualify that truly for me. But we do want passengers to be able to engage with your product as much as possible. So we do a lot of tasting. But again, it is case by case in some instances, depending on the product, the location, those type of things. So we could certainly support that piece through discussions and negotiations and where we place the kiosks, in our kind of multiple options as well.
Great. Thanks, Ashley. Obi, question for you. I believe you mentioned a Roy Wilkins event. Could you restate that event, the date, the time, a little more about that?
Yes. So in a week on May 16th at 6 p.m., the JFK redevelopment is having an information and opportunities expo. So this is when everyone from every terminal and different consultants will have table on opportunities for you to find out what is happening at the airport and what the opportunities are, what the timing is on those specific opportunities. And it's also a great opportunity for you to have one-on-one conversations with multiple teams. So myself, I'm going to be there. Most of the team from this program is going to be there. So it's an opportunity for the community or anyone who is interested to have one-on-one conversations in person with the terminal developers, with the agencies, and with other businesses or primes who are doing work at the airport. So it's on May 16th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and it's at the Roy Wilkins Community Center.
Great. Thanks, Obi. Ashley, we got a number of questions about the actual kiosks, so I'm going to direct these to you. These kiosks have to be bought, and if so, what is the cost?
So the beautiful thing about our accelerator program is that URW has foot the investment for these units. So we are spending the dollars to build, to bring, to install, and to prep for you. So don't worry about what the units cost, right? We've got that. That's part of our kind of lowering the barriers to entry perspective with this program overall.
Yeah, and these kiosks are lockable. You'll have keys. You'll have a little area for putting your POS system. They're quite turnkey. Now, you as a merchant or may want to bring in some additional items in the way you merchandise or display in certain areas, and you'll have some flexibility there. But the kiosks are really a turnkey solution.
Amy, to add to one of the points or one of the questions that came up earlier about what makes this program special, that just goes to add to the intentionality and everything that American Airlines and URW is doing to make sure that that there's a real opportunity for local businesses and local entrepreneurs to be able to really be in this program. So just wanted to highlight that as well. So apply.
Another question around the kiosks was just, Ashley, I'll ask this one to you. Confirming the kiosks aren't shared, and also how many kiosks are in the terminal?
So confirmed, they are not shared. They are one kiosk per business or per company. There are 4 total. There's 2 in Concourse B and 2 in Concourse C. So if you're familiar with the terminal, we've kind of got good coverage across the terminal as well.
And then that would confirm, that means that the first cohort would be 4 vendors who would be selected.
Yeah, correct. So what we're going to do, since May is Small Business Month, we decided to open the applications now, right? And we're accepting them through the end of the month. And so from there, we will select the first cohort for the first 4 opportunities. We will keep the applications open, right? So we'll keep allowing people to apply for future opportunities. And, so it's kind of like an ongoing rolling basis. Some people may only want to do a 6-month lease or a 3-month lease, or, some may want to do 12. So I would encourage people to continue to apply if you're not in a position today, but next year or in a couple months, you might qualify. To Obi's point, we are creating multiple entry points in Terminal 8. This is just one of many, right? There's long-term opportunities. There are product placement opportunities. There are vending machine opportunities. Those are things we've talked about over the last year and change. So this is a very specific use case, a very specific opportunity.
Thank you. We did get a number of questions about the application. So Ashley, I'm going to direct these to you. So if we've already applied for food and beverage with the application, will the application possibly still get looked at to reassure we will only be selling non-perishable items, or will it be passed?
So if I understand correctly, as long as your business, even if so what I've seen personally, and I've talked to, is that some people own a restaurant, right? But then they sell retail products or a line of spices or something, right? And so we will, with the help of Quentin and the RFW team, we will be kind of pre-qualifying all of these businesses to understand, not just from the surface level, oh, that's a restaurant, we're just going to pass on that, right? But what is the offer from that restaurant? You mentioned honey. There's lots of spin-offs from food and beverage that would qualify for this. So, rest assured that we will be kind of looking under the hood. These are very important details. And we will be circling back with people to, in theory, start negotiations, make sure we're kind of all aligned on the details, take potential tenant partners through more of the operational scope, the pricing requirements, all of those things to make sure that this makes sense for people. We know, even though we're taking on a big burden of the investment in the early days, there is still an investment here, right? You're still making and supplying product. You're still paying staff, right? You're still doing all those things and still paying to be here, albeit very low cost for this environment, right? The intent here is best case scenario is somebody comes in, they trial it, they're extremely successful and they're extremely happy with it. There's lots of work at JFK, right? There's lots of development projects. T8 is one of many. So Growing from there could be at our Terminal 1 project, right, into a long-term inline space. It could be at a different terminal that we're not necessarily a part of, right, but it's the right fit for you, and we will support kind of that handoff to a potential developer partner or something. So I think that best case scenario, somebody comes in, they try it out, they learn the business, they are creative and flexible, and they curate a very specific airport offer, and they just excel and become a long-term airport tenant. Another success story for somebody could be, I came in, I tried it, you people are all crazy, and this is not for me, right? Like, this is just way too much for me to deal with. Um, and it's just not the right fit, right? But you will never know unless you try it, right? And so this program allows you to try it at a much lower risk than typical.
I think the other great thing is you do have the URW team who's worked in airports, and they're going to really spend time helping you through this kind of first go into an airport, right? You have to, Ashley talked about all the operations, you have to get badged. Our team is going to really work with you and walk you through that. Our marketing team is going to be working with you to promote your new kiosk and to tell the story about, your great product. We're going to be obviously running campaigns, and we have customer service training, we have other programs. So we try to really provide a foundation of support so that not only once you're awarded and you're coming in, but our team is helping you along the way to really optimize your operation. Ashley, more questions on the application. We had a member of the audience ask if they could submit a presentation along with the application.
So as of today, the functionality on the application does not allow an upload, but we will circle back and take those decks or brand presentations down the road if we are interested in exploring more. So I would say hang tight to those types of things.
A follow-up question there, Ashley. Will the same scoring apply that was used in the inline applications that closed in February, or will it be different?
Similar. It won't be like for like, right? They're two different, even though they're part of the same accelerator program, they're two different opportunities. The inline stores are a little bit larger of a footprint, different kind of use and things we're looking for. I mean, to be honest, like it's there's pre-qualifiers, and then some things are subjective in the sense that the goal is success, right? And so we very specifically merchandise, and what that means is I am looking at what's around in the terminal that I've placed there, and then I'm finding things that complement or fit within that kind of footprint, right? So we don't want you competing with a big national brand. So it could be either there is a different location in the terminal if we believe the brand is strong and will do well, or it's something we need to just take a look at. So there's qualifiers, and then there's some pieces that are subjective based on things like that, and kind of discussions with our partners, American Airlines and Port Authority as well.
Mm-hmm. We did get a number of questions around the inline application. So, Ashley, if you could just speak a little bit about that inline opportunity that happened. We had one audience member say they submitted an application in January. So, is this the same opportunity, or are these 4 new kiosk spaces along with the 2?
Yep. So, kind of spinning off what I just said. So, the inline opportunities are different, right? We have 6 total accelerator opportunities at T8, and the easiest way to define accelerator is it's an investment that URW is making personally into T8. So, in addition to these 4 kiosks that we're discussing today, we also had an RFP in January, I think, for 2 inline stores, smaller stores, at about just under 200 feet. So similar size, a little bit different, but those are different in the sense that there's a storefront, you walk into it, and there's product in there. If you've been to like Newark Terminal A recently, they have a big showcase of something similar if you needed to kind of visualize. These are different, right? Those were specific to an RFP. Those will be awarded soon. There's been some delays because there are so many stakeholders in this environment, but they will be opening, I want to say, September of this year. So because the timeline of the project slid, some of that stuff is sliding too. And I will say, guys, this is an active redevelopment project, right? This isn't a mature terminal that you're coming into. So bear with us. Some things are completely out of our control when it comes to timing. We do our best to be agile and nimble. We will expect that same kind of flexibility from our partners. But come June of 2025, Terminal 8 will be done. It'll be a brand new place, unlike anything you've ever seen out of T8 before. So, just to kind of close the loop there, the inlines were different. Those were RFP based. Those will also have a turnover in about a year's time or two, depending. And then these 4 kiosk opportunities are separate from that. So there are 6 total.
Ashley, a member of our audience noticed that the categories between the inline RFP and the 4 kiosks were the same between the two. They were wondering if you could tell us what categories were the winners, and will that influence what you were looking for in this round?
So unfortunately, we're not quite ready to share the winners yet. We are not in final contract form, and we haven't announced any final contract brands or anything at Terminal 8 if you have not noticed yet. A lot of approvals and stakeholders and things in that realm as well. Welcome to airports, everybody. We will be using that as, I'd say, a baseline for what we plug and play in addition to. So because we put out the inline RFP first, those will be the drivers of the categories. And then we will be looking to backfill depending. But there's 2 inlines. They're right next to each other in Concourse B. So even if somebody applies with a category that is in an inline space, there's still an opportunity I could put you in the other concourse so that you're not competing with another small business right next to you. And so I think that's important, right? Is that we want everybody to succeed, right? We're not going to place people who are going to compete next to each other. And so, I know we're doing that to help everybody, right? I know sometimes it's hard to understand this if you're not kind of in the day-to-day in the mix of curating an offer. And again, the passenger does not change, right? So we cannot drive any foot traffic to these locations that don't exist in T8. So if your offer doesn't align with the passenger in T8, it is what it is, right? But that doesn't mean it won't align with a passenger in a different terminal, which is why I say always kind of keep your options open. Make sure for the utmost success for yourself, you are kind of understanding that information, what your passenger or customer profile really looks like. Have you looked at that? Have you thought through that? And just because maybe this one opportunity may or may not work, right? There is going to continue to be lots in all of the terminals. Obi will keep me honest here. And, something will be right. It's just a matter of which one.
Thanks, Ashley. I'm going to give you a little break since you've been talking for a while and turn some questions over to Obi and Quentin from RFW. Obi, I'll start with you. Hi, is this opportunity only for New York residents, or are you open to residents from other states who are willing to move?
So the priority is for local New York State residents, and emphasizing local businesses and entrepreneurs in the Queens, South Queens, and the Queens area. The Port Authority does have a tier system that that prioritizes businesses and entrepreneurs who are in tiers 1 and 2. So tier 1 are businesses that are registered within the zip codes that have been identified by the Port Authority. And then tier 2 is in the bigger Queens area. So we're not turning anyone away. However, the priority as far as this program is concerned is for local businesses, and ideally in the local Queens area.
Thanks, Obi. A follow-up question for you or Quentin. We received a question on the Institute of Concessions through the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. They were just online and they're currently not accepting applications. Do you know when they will be opening for applications again?
We haven't received notice yet on when the next class or cohort will start. In general, I believe it's, let me not say exactly how many weeks it is, but certainly before, I would imagine before the end of the year that there'll be another session, unless you've heard something different, Obi.
So it really depends. That's a Port Authority administered program, and it really is up to the Port Authority. Usually, they would actually have to review the applications received, start the cohort and run the cohort through the actual program. And then there's a graduation ceremony, and it's all about timing. So in terms of the specifics about when they will start the next application, we don't have those details yet, but we always tell people to just stay informed, continue to check in on the multiple databases, like the new JFK.com as an incredible resource as to when those will open back up.
Thank you both. Ashley, a question around, can we get a ticket to walk through the airport in the next few weeks? And what should we submit as designs in our application? Is it a product list? Can we have a 3D kiosk to design around?
So if you are selected, then we will bring you into the airport to tour the airport space. And we also do not need a kiosk, a rendering or anything of the kiosk merchandising at this stage. For leasing to make a decision, we need to know more about who you are, what your products are, more than we need to see how they're presented in the environment. I have some really, really great colleagues who are experts in design and merchandising who the leasing team turns over to that group once you have negotiated on your lease. You will be in good hands with merchandising your unit and kind of making sure it checks all of the boxes that it needs to. It's maximized to its utmost potential. And one thing to be aware of is every single store, big, small, in this terminal has a design criteria specific to it. So there is a very specific way things are done in airports, which will be a great learning experience for anybody who participates. But it is not, it's very much that is driven by our design team, that piece.
Thanks, Ashley. Another question for you. So is the existing store count a hard rule? For example, we have 4 existing locations in Queens and Brooklyn. Are we still able to apply?
Yes. Apply. If you're on the fence or unsure, or you're not quite clear on a qualifier, I would say apply. I would say don't let your lack of unsurety, and probably not a word, right? But just apply. If you think you qualify, or you're kind of on the fence of qualifying, just apply, right? It certainly cannot hurt. The application is pretty simple. We intended to keep it simple for that purpose, so that it's not, the RFPs for the inline, the request for proposal is a much more detailed, takes quite a bit of time to put together more information for us. But this is meant to be very streamlined and efficient for everybody.
Ashley, we have a more general leasing question. How can I apply for an inline store?
One of the accelerator inlines. So if it is about the accelerator inlines, that first tranche has closed. The only reason we would come back to market is if the people we selected didn't ended up not being ready to move forward, right, then we would reopen that. So at that point, that will be closed for about a year's time. As far as inline stores go, long term, like 10-year, we don't have applications for that per se. We do direct leasing for that. So we're just about done. I think we may have one retail opportunity left, if I'm being honest, because we are on the back end of the T8 leasing development piece. I think the best way to get noticed is to apply for the Small Business Accelerator. And if it's something that I feel or we feel is strong enough, then I would have that kind of discussion at that point. But there is that opens up a whole can of worms with soup to nuts. The capex to build out a store in the airport environment is wildly expensive. That just opens a whole different can of worms. So I'm happy to have that conversation if we feel a strong enough offer that complements the other long-term inlines exists in the application pool.
Amy, they can also just send an email to the info T8@rfwconsultants.com. And then that way we can have a one-on-one assessment with the team just to gauge where they are. And then that information will be filtered to the URW team accordingly. So that's also a resource that they have available to them as well.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Obi, for that. Quentin, a question for you. Can you please clarify requirements? This person has an MWBE certification, so perhaps you could just go over certifications again a little bit.
Sure. So MWBE certification is a little different than the ACDBE certification, which is a federal program. ACDBE, airport concessions, DBE, meaning disadvantaged business enterprise. So that owner qualifies as disadvantaged for that certification program. And if they're interested in concessions opportunities, then they get to pursue the certification in ACDBE. MWBE looks at the business itself. So as long as we're able to confirm, or the Port Authority is able to confirm that the business is owned by a minority or woman or woman who has more than 51% ownership, and shows that they control the business, meaning they have the expertise to direct the business, then they qualify as MWBE. So for these opportunities, we want to know what you're certified in. And then, but we, as Ashley described, we want to look at your product, and we want to understand how your product can possibly fit into the mix at T8. And then and then we'll look at the certification.
Quentin, we received a shout out for you from the audience. I want to thank Quentin for being so patient in addressing questions and walking me through this complex online certification process. Your team is the best, with a big thumbs up.
Oh, I appreciate that. And thank you for not
Quentin
calling.
Is the best.
Thank you for someone actually called and said, "Hey, Quentin, we see you online."
Oh, is that who was calling us 3 times while we were on the show? Nice.
Hilarious. But yeah, it's no, we're happy to help and to help understand the different offerings, the big picture. And I'll just add, that T8 is a great program, but we're the first of many, right? New Terminal 1 is coming up, and other terminals that are involved as the full JFK redevelopment picture. So if, as Ashley said, if we're not able to find the right mix for you here, stay tuned, stay on anewjfk.com and plug into the opportunities that are coming up that are soon to follow.
Thanks, Quentin. We've received a number of questions, but I know we're coming up on time, so I'm going to do a rapid fire ending to Ashley. So,
Okay.
Sorry, Ashley.
Sorry, yeah,
got it.
These are really about the more again, operating technical questions to Kiosk. So, will we have electrical to recharge our devices?
Yes.
Great. When would the first four vendors be notified and onboarded?
We're targeting by the end of June.
Great. Um, is there any information that you can give pertaining to price range for walk-in stores, or just price range in general of what would work for the TA customer?
Yes, we can follow up with that.
Okay. Is there
The
an
price
estimate?
range is specific. It's not based on the customer. It's based on your product, what you charge on the street, plus 10% is the what you can charge. And if they're talking about pricing of an actual storefront, then that's a little bit different. And I think we addressed that already between Obi's team and applying.
Great. Do you have any type of estimate on the CAM fee, the common area maintenance fee that's required?
Unfortunately, I don't feel comfortable giving an estimate because it varies every year based on the amount of tenants and the amount of GLA, which is also called gross leasable area that we have. Um, it's manageable. It's not extraordinary, is all I will say. And I don't control that, so that's an operations question. I'd prefer to have that conversation down the road.
Yes. Okay, great. And then a last question, which I will take, is when will we receive an email of the application? Just for everyone to know, we have been recording this today. You will be receiving a link to the recording, and it's also going to be posted to the new jfkt8.com. We're happy to send out again a link to the application as well. And again, by registering for today's event, you are now a part of URW's Supplier Diversity Network. So you're on the list, and you're going to be hearing about upcoming events and outreaches and business opportunities. I do want to remind everyone that you can email info@rfwconsultants.com. They're there to support you at any time with any of your questions. And I really just want to thank our panelists today for their engagement, and thank the audience for their participation in today's session. We had a really great session and learned a lot. And the opportunity is coming up, so we would ask that you know send in your questions, get in your applications, and have the opportunity to join this cohort. So thank you to everyone again for joining us today, and we look forward to receiving your application for URW's Retail Accelerator at JFK Terminal 8.